Welcome to the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. Are you over 40 and tired of struggling with your weight, dieting, and constantly feeling like you're starting over with nutrition and fitness? Do you wish you had more energy? Do you want to lose weight and finally keep it off for good? I'm Lil, a certified nutrition coach and former registered nurse. I too have been there, and at the age of 44, I decided I was done with fad diets and chasing a lower number on the scale. I was so tired of constantly starting over and wondering why I couldn't get lasting results. I became a nutrition coach and created the Feel Your Best formula for women who want to build muscle, lose fat, and keep it off for good. If you're ready to build a better relationship with food, the scale, and your body, let's build your formula for feeling your best. If you're new here, make sure to check the episode details for the link to my newbie starter guide. You'll receive an email straight to your inbox with everything you need to start building your Feel Your Best formula. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's dive into today's episode. Hello, good morning, happy Friday. This is Lil, and of course, this is the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. As I've mentioned previously, these last few episodes before 2024 starts, I am here to help you prepare so that you can make the best decision possible when it comes to getting started with your goals and new healthy habits in 2024. And just like you, I am thinking about different things I want to work on, habits I want to start, maybe things that I want to stop doing, things that I want to tweak and change. And a lot of that obviously has to do with my own personal goals, but also with my business goals. And my business has grown so much over the last few months that I realized I think I need to change the podcast schedule. I think that, having a podcast release on Mondays and Fridays is great in many ways, but I'm going to change things up. So starting in 2024, I'm going to be releasing episodes on Tuesdays and Fridays. And this is simply so I can have more work-life balance, because sometimes I find myself unable to get my podcast recorded because life happens and I'm really busy during the week doing client work, and that has grown. So prior to having a full client load, I obviously had more time to, be recording the podcast and researching and writing the scripts and all that. So I just said, I need to be flexible with myself. So setting an example for you of when you realize something isn't working, it's time to change it. And I have found myself being very stressed out recently when it comes to getting that Monday podcast out, because if I don't get to it by Friday, then I know I've got to get it done Saturday or Sunday. And this is not, December is a very busy month for us. We have multiple birthdays and, of course, the holidays and things we want to be doing. And I do not want to be stressed on the weekend feeling the pressure to record a podcast. So I decided I'm going to give myself a little bit of a buffer zone, even though Mondays are really, really busy with client work, because those are my Monday check-ins for my email clients, my clients who check in via email. But I will have that day to have more flexibility if I cannot get my podcast recorded the previous week during my business hours. So that's just one example of looking at something that's not working and just deciding, hey, we're going to try something new. And at the end of the day, if that doesn't work, I can always try something different, but I don't want to keep doing something that feels really forced and is creating stress in my life. I may get to a point where I'm going back down to one podcast per week because I obviously want to help as many people as possible. And as my client load grows, then that takes time away from me producing the podcast. And I do this entirely for free. I am a one-woman show these days. I did have a wonderful podcast manager for a while that was helping me out getting everything set up, but now I just use her templates and do everything on my own. So I'm a one-woman show. Anyway, the other thing, someone reached out to me a few weeks ago and said, I listened to your episode from back in the springtime when you talked about wanting to start the new habit with flossing and brushing your teeth, because I shared, I don't even remember what episode it was, but I shared how I was getting so mad at myself because I would keep falling asleep and forgetting to brush my teeth. And then I would wake up around, 11 o'clock and have to go brush my teeth, put in my retainer and all that stuff. And it was really irritating, annoying. It would wake me up. And I knew that was a habit I had to change. So I don't think I've reported back on it, but pretty much as soon as I did that podcast episode, I started the habit of going upstairs, immediately brushing and flossing my teeth and putting in my retainer. And that was it. I haven't had an issue since. I mean, I haven't been perfect. There's been maybe a time here or there where I forget, but literally that's how easy it can be to start a new habit. And the reason I created that habit so easily was I made the commitment that even if I got cozy in bed, even if I got started watching a show and then remembered, oh my goodness, I did not brush and floss my teeth and do the whole thing, I would stop myself. I'd say, hold on, I got to go do this. I got to get out of my cozy bed. I got to go do this. And then I will get back into my cozy bed and watching the show or whatever. But it's about making that commitment and deciding, even if it's going to be annoying and uncomfortable, to do what you need to do to check that off your list. You have to do it. And it is difficult in the beginning because it is not a habit that you have built yet. But now here I am, probably 7 months later since I started that habit. And I just walk upstairs, immediately brush my teeth, immediately floss, do the whole thing. And I had forgotten that I even used to have that issue where I would wake up and get all interrupted with my sleep pattern because I hadn't done it. So there's another example for you of just how I personally have created certain new habits. And I think a lot of time we can tolerate things that are not working for us because it's easier to stick with what you know than put in the effort and do something new. It's really just that simple. Sometimes we're just too lazy. And if you find yourself being lazy and annoyed at yourself with your laziness, then just put in that effort for a week, 2 weeks, a month, however long it takes to build that new habit. And then you get to a point where it's the habit and you don't even have to think about it anymore. All right, that was a little bit of a tangent there, but I'm really excited for today's topic because it is incredibly important. And we need to talk about diet culture and how breaking away from toxic diet culture is simply going to be your first step towards a better relationship with food, your body, the scale, and ultimately building habits that last. Now, like so many topics on here, it would be impossible for me to talk about how toxic diet culture is, like how truly toxic and poisonous it is, and all the different ways that it affects us and how it is ingrained in us and how every day we're bombarded with these messages. Like, I'm getting fired up now. If you could see me, my hands are flailing all around. I'm talking with my hands, even though you can't see me. So I'm just going to pull out a few of what I feel are some of the most important aspects of this to talk about. And again, there's always nuance, nothing black and white. But overall, toxic diet culture is exactly that. It's harmful. It's harmful to our physical health, and more importantly, it's harmful to our mental health. And it can be a bit of a spectrum because, again, like I said, here's that pesky nuance. Diet culture doesn't want you to think in nuanced terms, but let's be honest, there are certain things that may be harmful to one person, but it's not necessarily harmful to everyone. So maybe there are certain aspects that I talk about today that you don't personally see a problem with, or it has not negatively affected you. But I think a great way to think about these topics is to just ask yourself how you can build thoughts and beliefs and actions around health, wellness, dieting. I mean, some people think that dieting in itself is toxic and that you should just go ahead and gain weight. And there's no problem with that because it's so bad for your mental health for you to lose weight. Well, I think that's toxic anti-diet culture. So you have to decide for yourself what thoughts and beliefs and actions are going to serve you. I'm going to highlight some of the most popular marketing messaging and tactics and lies that we are sold by diet culture. And I'm going to encourage you to question some automatic thoughts that you might have underlying these messages where you are in agreement with some of these things, even if you know that those thoughts make you feel bad about yourself and having those thoughts have not helped you move towards building habits that you feel good about. So, as women, diet culture really wants to sell us on thinness. So, we're going to talk about thinness first. And on some level, I think we've all had that thought that, oh, if I could only be skinnier, then I would finally be happy. And believe me, I have been there. I was actually really struck by this feeling when I was looking through my Facebook memories that popped up and I saw myself at a weight that was about probably 25 or 30 pounds lighter than I am now. And do you know what I thought as soon as I saw that photo? I clearly remembered how at that size, I still felt like I needed to lose another 10 pounds. I wasn't happy. I still didn't feel small enough. I didn't feel thin enough. And I looked at that photo. I mean, I'll post it on my Instagram today in my Instagram stories, and I'll share that photo because you can see how I am very, very skinny compared to where I am now. And I just remember how I felt at that time. I'm sitting there, I'm actually eating a salad, and I look at the salad and I'm like, that's not enough chicken. You need more protein. What I wish I had done at that time is actually just gained 5 pounds, 10 pounds of muscle. I really wish that's what my next step had been because that actually would have made me happy. But instead, I was obsessed with the scale going down. It's so crazy because here I am in a bigger and stronger body, and I definitely have more fat on my body right now because that picture that you're going to see, I had a very unhealthy relationship with food at that time. But I'm so much happier. I'm bigger and I'm happier. And if you had asked me if I thought that was possible back when that photo was taken, I would have said, absolutely not. I need to lose another 5 to 10 pounds because there were just specific parts of my body, particularly my stomach, that, I mean, I remember what I looked like at that time. And I remember putting on dresses or wearing a bathing suit and just picking apart how I looked. And I had no awareness at that time how disordered that actually was. And I truly thought that I needed to lose more weight. So now I have a normal relationship with food, like I am so thankful that I don't have all these thoughts in my head, all this mental chatter, all this should I, shouldn't I? It's bad if you eat that. That's unhealthy. It's not organic. All those things. I'm so glad that my mind has quieted and I have a healthy relationship with the scale. I have a healthy relationship with my body, and getting stronger and focusing on getting stronger has been a huge part of that rather than focusing on thinness. I don't freak out over what the scale says anymore. And I know that trying to chase a lower number on the scale again, like I will never do that. It's such a waste of time. And it would just get me into this binge restrict loop that I was in for years. Now I can look at that photo and understand that I was not any healthier than I am now, and that being thin doesn't mean you're healthy physically or mentally. There is so much more to it, but that message of thin equals happy is sold to us over and over and over to the point that we think that that's what we should be chasing when it comes to our goals. And I say chase, right? Because do we ever reach it? Does it ever stick? No. Those of us who are in that mindset, no. Are there people who, again, this is where the nuance is, are there people who are just naturally lean and their genetics have made them that way and they don't chase anything? It just is how they are. Absolutely. That is 100% how some people are able to live, and that's wonderful for them. And they are meant to be lean, and that is what their body type is. But I am not. I am someone who is curvy, and I should embrace that and enjoy it and be proud of my body instead of trying to force it to look a certain way. I just really wish that if I could go back in time, what I would have done is started to eat more, started to build muscle. And if I had done that, I would already be at that goal that I am working towards. You know what I'm saying? Like, then I wasted so much time in between that photo, which was probably like 8 years ago or 9 years ago, something like that, till today. I would 100% just be totally at maintenance, have the strength that I'm working on building now. But hindsight is 2020, and I know better now, and better late than never. Adding muscle probably would have made me a whole lot happier, and it would have been a healthier goal. So the next time you find yourself tempted to buy a diet, ask yourself if they're actually addressing building healthy habits, or are they just trying to convince you their method will finally make you skinny. And I'm going to be honest that as a nutrition coach, I have to talk about weight loss. And I almost feel sometimes that it's a bit of a bait and switch, because I know that's what you want. You want to lose weight. And that's why when we get on our 15-minute call, I require you to schedule a 15-minute call before you sign up with me, because I have to explain to you that we're not going to start off and just immediately have you lose weight. Again, nuance. Do I have clients where that is what they have done? Yes. Yes, I do, because that was the appropriate decision for them as an individual. And the truth is, the vast majority of you listening to this podcast, it would not be the correct first step for you to just jump into a fat loss phase, because you haven't built the habits required to do that effectively. Mostly you don't have those habits because you have been exposed to toxic diet culture for decades that makes you believe things, feel a certain way, have feelings about your body. It makes you fear things that are actually good for you, beneficial and helpful for you. Like, let's say, eating more than 2,000 calories per day, eating more than 1,500 calories per day, using the scale simply as a tool. These are just two examples of ways that diet culture makes us do things and that are unhealthy for us and prevents us from doing things that are healthy for us. And no matter how much weight you feel like you may need to lose, as long as you don't have any underlying medical conditions, it can be so beneficial for you to just put the brakes on. We're not going to gain any weight when you start working with me. You're at a minimum going to maintain where you are. But especially if you're a beginner, just starting these new habits by using my Feel Your Best formula, you can start to change your body in positive ways without worrying about weight loss. And if you haven't listened to my episode yet, where my client Lisa shares her story of being fearful of not just immediately jumping into weight loss, and yet she shares where she is today, and she's so thankful that she's approaching it this way, which is so different than how she has been doing things for decades. So if you have 10, 20, 30 or more pounds that you want to lose, you need to work on getting yourself in the right shape physically and mentally so that you can actually lose fat the right way and reach a point where you can maintain your results because you've built the muscle, you can maintain the muscle, and you're not going to be back and forth in and out of diets. When I was immersed in diet culture, it didn't teach me at all how to build muscle the right way or maintain the muscle. I would go to do a program and it would ask you, do you want to gain muscle or do you want to lose weight? If you were faced with that question without having the understanding of what that really means in your body and you're only thinking about what that's going to do to the scale, what is your answer going to be? Your answer is going to be, I am going to eat so that I can lose weight. And that's what I would do every single time I started a program. I would eat the lowest amount of calories. And over time, this vicious cycle sapped me of my muscles, right? Because you're losing muscle every time you diet like that. And it never gave me the ability to gain muscle properly and then lose fat properly. It didn't have me think about my additional activity level and how that worked with my fitness. It was all very cookie cutter, and my individual needs were not taken into account. And it was just up to me to follow this plan that was not even made for me, just so I could lose weight and be happy because, it's thinness. Thinness is what's on my mind when I am being healthy. I'm being healthy because it's going to make me thin. And it's such a mind F. That's like the only word I can use to describe it properly. My podcast is not rated explicit, so I can't say it. If you knew me in person, I would say it. But it's a mind F because you do feel happy when you lose weight and you reach your goal. So this is how it messes with your mind. You feel happy. And then when you fumble the ball trying to maintain it and then you gain back the weight, you're like, oh, it's my fault. I'm a failure. But the problem is that diet only taught you how to lose weight. It didn't teach you how to keep it off, because if it did, how are they going to sell you the next program? How are they going to get you to do another round of it? How are they going to get you to get back on track and follow this restrictive plan again, right? That's the secret. That's the toxic diet culture secret, to always be selling you that you need to get back on track with unsustainable diets. They don't want them to be sustainable, because then how can they keep selling you the same thing over and over? I feel like I could talk about this forever because I was so immersed in it. I was so stuck in it. I couldn't see it for what it was at the time. But this is my biggest pet peeve with diet culture: equating health with being skinny, always about chasing a lower number on the scale, ignoring all these other habits, or focusing on things that don't even matter, yet ignoring the fact that your activity level, your sleep, your individual life schedule, how much you work, what your family obligations are. All of these things impact your ability to follow a plan, and you forcing yourself to stick to a plan in the hopes of getting thin and finally being happy. But that plan is so stressful for you to follow for the long term. It's just this messy, vicious cycle. And the reason why I understand why companies do this or why people create programs that do this, because it's really hard to mass produce a solution that is nuanced and individualized. It's much easier to convince you that you are the problem because you can't stick to this program that wasn't made for you. So I feel like that was a mouthful, everything I talked about there. But overall, the point I want you to get is that you have to let go of this idea that being thin equals being healthy. Look at the women out there who are competing in the Olympic or the deadlift competitions. Are they unhealthy? Most of them are not skinny. Most of them are not skinny. They are strong. And a lot of people out there would not be like, oh, she's healthy, if they didn't know what was behind what they're actually doing. But you can't be strong in a stick thin, rail thin body that is stick thin and rail thin because it is being underfed and it is under muscled, right? And I think most of us want to be somewhere in the middle, which is I'm in the middle right now, and I'm working towards a goal that I understand is going to take me years to get there. If I'd started back when, looking at that photo of myself, if I'd started back then, I would absolutely already have the muscle mass and the level of leanness that ultimately I'm working towards. So, understanding you got to have patience and you got to put the work in, but getting thin isn't going to make you any happier physically or mentally. And being thin doesn't mean that you're healthy. Being thin and underweight can be a terrible side effect of many illnesses, and gaining weight can be a very healthy thing for many people to do. So we have to step away from this idea that thinness equals health. And this is where you need to look at yourself as an individual, and you need to take ownership, and you need to decide what you need to do for yourself. Take away society and the things you see on Instagram and all the nonsense out there with all the plastic surgery and everything, because a lot of the quote goals out there right now, I mean, just ridiculous because they're unattainable unless you're going to have someone, injecting stuff in your butt or your boobs or whatever. It's just completely unrealistic. So, in the body that you're in right now, can you start appreciating it today just by starting healthy habits? Because once you start healthy habits, you start focus on getting stronger, you're going to grow an appreciation for your body aside from thinness. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to change your body composition anyway if you're focusing on getting stronger. You're going to build more lean muscle, and you're probably going to lose some fat even if you don't try that hard, even if it's too hard of a mental burden for you to think about nutrition and food. If you start really lifting properly, and I say that word properly because the vast majority of women who are picking up dumbbells are not doing it in a way that's actually going to build muscle. But when you start lifting weights properly, you're going to change your body composition anyway. And that's going to increase your health physically, because there's so many benefits of having more lean muscle on your body. And getting stronger is one of the best things you can do for your mental health. All right. Well, since I could talk for days about this topic and the problems with focusing on getting skinny, let's move on to the next topic. I want you to let go of this idea of being on track and off track. And along those same ideas, the thought of I'm being good or I'm being bad based on whether or not you eat certain foods or do a workout or don't do a workout. As long as you think about yourself this way, you are stuck in a diet mindset. You're stuck in diet culture, and it isn't going to serve you well when it comes to the realities and what it does take to build sustainable habits, because you can't build sustainable habits if you're thinking about things that way. Because you know what? Sustainable habits are going to have to include those quote bad days or naughty days, those days when you beat yourself up. And when you're on a diet, you feel like every day has to be perfect. And so many of you are trying to live life on a diet or think you should be living life on a diet. And here's the truth. Trying to live by arbitrary rules made up by someone who doesn't know you, doesn't know your needs, doesn't know your background, and only wants to make money off of you by selling you a diet is no way to judge yourself. You cannot measure yourself against this arbitrary plan that wasn't made for you, that if you cannot perfectly follow it, it doesn't mean you're bad. And once you realize that there is nothing wrong with enjoying a cupcake or pizza or ice cream sundae, you realize judging yourself for not being able to stick to a diet with rules 365 days out of the year, which is 1,095 meals, assuming you're just eating 3 meals a day and not having any snacks. That is just dumb. How can anyone eat this way? This is where nuance and balance comes in. And yes, don't get it twisted. You absolutely should be eating nutritious and balanced meals that give your body the macro and micronutrients that it needs. That's what most of your food intake should look like, because you need to give your body the nutrients that it needs. But it doesn't mean that you can't fit in the foods that are not as nutritious. It doesn't mean that you can't be healthy or you can't even lose fat if you also eat these less nutritious foods, because you absolutely can. What happens is diets give you rules that put you in a calorie deficit. If you've been here a while, we understand here that the only way your body loses weight or fat is by being in a calorie deficit. There's no magical other solution, right? It's all about the calorie deficit. So they have these rules. They have you cut out certain foods or food groups, and they give you all kinds of arbitrary rules just to get you to consume less calories in your day, therefore putting you in a calorie deficit. And all different diets use all different kinds of strategies, whether you buy all your food from Jenny Craig or Nutrisystem, or you do keto or intermittent fasting or 21-day fix or 2B mindset. The only reason you're losing weight is because you are consuming less calories than your body is burning. That's it. And they use these strategies to make you think their particular way of doing things is the best way. But here's where the problem lies. Say you do a diet where you have to buy all your food from like Jenny Craig or Nutrisystem. What happens when you can't eat their food and you have to make choices on your own? What happens if you're following keto and you end up at a pasta dinner party and there are no carb-free options? Well, what happens when you can't stick to that plan? What happens is you feel bad about yourself and you feel stressed and anxious because you've gone, quote, off track with your diet when you can't follow those rules. That's what happens. And it creates this whole downward spiral, and you go into effort mode and you beat yourself up. You worry you're going to gain 5 pounds overnight, and it leads you away from your goals. What if you let go of this way of thinking and instead of believing it's all about being on track or off track, you just realize this is life? And most days you're able to make the choices that you want, that you can feel proud of, that are in alignment with your goals. Because when you work with me, you're making a plan that actually works for you. You're not trying to follow some plan that someone who doesn't know you created. And on the days when you can't stick to kind of like what you would consider an ideal way of eating that works for you, if a little bit of a curveball happens, you find yourself in a situation, or you purposely go somewhere where you just know you're not going to have those food options available to you, you just shrug it off. You enjoy yourself. You have the knowledge to be agile and adjust and just wake up the next day and get back to the habits that you already have in place, that you already enjoy. And it's not this big, oh, it's time to get back on track. I've been so bad. I mean, I talk about this episode all the time, but my episode about going on vacation, it's just an extension of who you are. When you go on vacation, are you a completely different person than you are when you're home? You really shouldn't be. You should be enjoying things that you don't have available to you in your day to day life. And that should include food if that's something you really enjoy. But it doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing of, oh, vacation's over. I'm so gross. I'm so bloated. I need to get back on track. I need to do a cleanse. Like, no, just get back to eating the way you normally eat, get back to working out how you normally work out, and just be yourself. It is so blown out of proportion when you look at things through this on track, off track, good, bad mentality. And remember, it's never about what you do, it's about who you are. And when you become someone who knows how to make choices you can be proud of and feel good about, that doesn't change because of one meal or one day or even a whole week. It's about having confidence in yourself because you know what to do. And sadly, I don't think many people out there, perhaps including you, do know how to make decisions you feel proud of because diet culture has completely effed with your head for so long, right? So, can we please let go of saying things like, I was so bad today. I was so naughty. I had the birthday cake and the pizza. Oh my God, it's just ruined. I need to go on a diet. I need to just eat just salad and water for me tomorrow. Can we please stop? Like, that's so done, over with. We need to move on from that mentality. So what? You ate a little bit more on one day. What? The world isn't gonna explode. Just move on. Get over it. Okay. All right. Let's move on to our next topic and let's talk about letting go of the restrictive mentality that is basically the description of diet culture: restriction, restriction, restriction. Diet culture is always about focusing on and celebrating less, eating less, weighing less. Decades ago, when I very first started dabbling in nutrition and dieting and all that stuff, I read the book Body for Life. And I also read Tosca Reno's book on clean eating. She's known as a clean eating queen. Bill is this guy that wrote Body for Life, which actually, I'm not bashing these people. They had some really great ideas that I think could be some foundational, helpful, knowledge-based things. Especially Bill really knows about strength training and working out. But one thing that stuck out for me from both of these people, completely separate books, they didn't work together or anything like that, but I remembered how both of them talked about how there were certain treats that they only ever had once per year. Bill in his book talks about his mom making, I believe it was spaghetti and meatballs, and how he would allow himself to have that on his, I believe it was on his birthday that his mom would make it for him. And Tosca talks about having one bite of birthday cake and I think also a glass of wine once a year. And when I first read, I remember I read these books at separate times, but I would read them and think, wow. I was like, I would put these people on a pedestal. I wanted to be like them. Like, that's amazing self control. They must be so healthy. I thought if they can resist all these unhealthy foods like every day, I should be able to do that too. And it was in those moments that this really unhealthy standard sort of got set in my mind as to what it meant to be healthy. Here's these really epitome of health. These people are the epitome of, they're lean, they're eating a certain way, they work out, they look amazing. And this is what they do. So if I do that, then surely I can look like them as well. And in hindsight, now I look back and I'm like, did they really eat that way? Like, I don't know. Did they really only indulge once a year? I feel like if that is true, then it's a little disordered. And if it's not true, then they shouldn't be telling people this is what they actually do. But I don't know. That's for them to know. And, if it's your full time job to eat this way, then yeah, maybe it's a little bit easier for you if you're getting paid literally to eat that way all the time. Not that you have to eat that way to look that way either. But for the majority of people reading their books and looking to them for guidance, like myself, I was a nurse, I worked full time, and I wanted, to be as healthy as I could. But I had a lot on my plate and more obstacles in my life to eating this way or getting workouts in. You're working 12-hour shifts, really hard to work out, and you probably shouldn't work out on a day that you're working a 12-hour shift. And it should never be sold as, this is how you should live your life by never ever having a treat and living in this constant state of restriction. And like I said, I think there's a lot of great advice in both of those books. There's some solid advice in there that, a broken clock is always right twice a day, too. Like nothing is all good or all bad. I just think it's funny that when I look back on those books that really had a foundational impact on how I moved forward with working towards my health and wellness goals from my 20s all the way into my 40s, that I so vividly remember those little paragraphs about how they were so controlled and had so much willpower and only allowed themselves, only one bite of birthday cake. I can't even imagine. Like, it just seems so unreal. And putting that on a pedestal and thinking this is what I should be working towards. I remember all those little tiny details that stood out to me about what they ate when they indulged. And honestly, other than that, I don't really remember a whole lot about the diets of what they said was, what you should be doing when you're not indulging. And I just remember they were very restrictive with lots of rules. And what if you flipped that restrictive mindset to an abundance mindset? And what if instead of focusing on how you should eat less, you focus on what you should be eating more of? And what are the foods that your body needs and you might not be getting enough of? What if you make sure that you're eating enough protein, enough fiber, enough fruits and veggies before you even think about cutting foods out? What if you learned how to nourish your body first and let go of this idea that being healthy is hard and unenjoyable? Because it's not. Because when you come from a mindset of, let's make sure I'm getting enough and that I'm eating enough to build a strong body, it's a completely different perspective than thinking of all the things you need to give up and restrict in order to make yourself thinner. The amount of change you could make if you just started lifting weights and eating more whole foods, eating the calories that your body needs, eating enough protein without even thinking about losing weight could change your entire life in your health outcomes. But yet, everyone out there is writing books about how to get skinny. They're on their Instagram talking to you about how to get skinny. It's all about restriction. and this is bad for you, and not talking enough about the things that are good for you, or having you focus in on things that might be a little bit good for you. But if you're doing those things without doing the big things that are good for you, it's not going to give you any benefit at all. Like someone trying to sell you some supplement, like a green supplement, and tell you that's going to make you feel better, but you're not getting enough sleep. You're really stressed out. You're restricting your calories. You're doing only cardio workouts. You're not drinking enough water. But yeah, here, let's drink this green powder drink and that's going to fix everything. No, you don't. I'd rather have you not do. I mean, I don't think green powder drinks are, I used to drink one. I don't drink one anymore at all. Um, they're having you skip over the things you should be doing more of, right? And giving you that restrictive mindset of, oh, I need to stop doing this. I need to eat less of this. I need to eat less food. I need to get smaller. We need to let go of that mindset. And once you do, the weight that is lifted off of your shoulders and out of your brain, it is so freeing to just make that very simple shift from a restricted mindset to an abundance mindset, and asking yourself what you need more of instead of what you need to take away. All right. So let's talk about health and letting go of this idea that weight loss is in itself indicative of better health. And we've kind of talked about that, but we're going to actually talk about medical stuff in this section here. So I'm seeing this like new phase of diet culture coming in where basically they're trying to convince you have a health problem, and then they're selling you a diet to fix it. This is the newest thing in the diet arena. It kind of tiptoed in with parasite cleanses and people talking about supposed leaky gut and adrenal fatigue and things like that. That's been going on now for probably about a decade. Spoiler, if you live in a developed country, you do not have a parasite, and also a cleanse isn't going to do anything to kill a parasite. You understand what a parasite is? Like if you have a dog, like I give Jade her heartworm pill once a month. You cannot kill a parasite with a diet. You would need a drug to actually kill it, prevent it. And you don't have one if you live in America. Sorry. Unless you visited, a country where those things are slightly more prevalent. But people are going to sell you all kinds of diets and supplements trying to cure you, from this supposed parasite that you have, or supposed leaky gut and adrenal fatigue, which are like literally made up diagnoses. They don't exist in the medical world. You could have an issue with your intestinal membrane permeability, which, kind of sort of is a leaky gut issue, but you would need to go to an actual doctor. They're not going to tell you you have a leaky gut because that's not an actual diagnosis. And they certainly wouldn't just be throwing some sort of diet or supplements at you. You would be on a medical plan to get yourself fixed. And this is such a prevalent thing and it's so gross. And I think myself, coming from my nursing background combined with being a nutrition coach, it infuriates me to see this type of stuff. And I see it everywhere. I see it, I'm friends on Facebook with people who share stuff like this, and I don't get in arguments with them over it. I just kind of roll my eyes, and sometimes I block them because I don't want to see it, because they're selling these supplements to fix these problems that people don't even have. We see it with the gut health, and now we're seeing it with the quote hormone balancing. It's all nonsense. Any diet claiming to fix your gut health, as this is assuming you even have a gut health issue to begin with, because over dieting, under eating, restricting, yo-yo dieting, all that stuff can mess with your digestive system and cause you to have symptoms that then the diet industry is going to be like, oh, it's your gut health. We need to fix your gut health. Or balancing your hormones. You're tired, you've got that fatigue, you're moody. Oh, you need to balance your hormones. This diet is going to fix that. Is a straight up scam, right? Also, how are they promoting these gut health and these hormone balancing diets? This is your biggest red flag right there. Before and after photos, okay? If you're ready to let go of toxic diet culture, then you need to let go of before and after photos being a reason that you buy any type of product or plan. And it's absolutely insane that someone would try to sell you a diet to fix a medical condition and market it with before and after photos. Weight loss has absolutely nothing to do with gut health. And if you were doing a proper elimination diet under the guidance of a registered dietitian and GI specialist, weight loss would not even be part of the discussion or what they are looking at. Weight loss, as I've said, is not a sole indicator of better health. In fact, I would say a lot of people with true IBS or colitis would tell you that weight loss is an unwanted side effect because they struggle to absorb nutrients and food just goes right through them, or they just simply don't feel well enough to consume enough calories. So someone with a true GI issue probably doesn't have any weight to lose, and a photo of them gaining weight might be a more positive before and after progress photo. Because here's the deal. If you're tired and having stomach issues or gaining weight and you're not sure why, go see a doctor and start looking at your habits. Are you eating enough fiber? All these people trying to sell you a gut health program, do they even have you check to see if you're eating enough fiber and drinking enough water first? Simply making the shift towards a more high fiber diet could help so many people, but the vast majority of Americans are barely eating 10 to 15 grams of fiber per day, and we should be eating closer to 25 to 40 grams of fiber today, again, depending on the individual. So let's start looking at how much fiber you're eating, how much you're sleeping, how much alcohol you're consuming. That's a big one. If you're tired, you're not sleeping well, you don't feel good, maybe look at how much alcohol you're drinking before you start overcomplicating things and thinking you have an actual medical problem. And guess what? Menopause sucks, but no diet is going to fix it for you. It's something we're going to have to go through, just like we went through puberty. And yes, if you're having major issues, then yes, you should reach out to an endocrinologist or your OBGYN if maybe you need some help with actual hormone balancing through hormone replacement therapy. But also, are you following a balanced diet? Are you eating enough calories? Do you have a healthy body composition? Are you sleeping enough? You see, you got to keep going back to the basics. And if you don't have the basics under control, why are you looking at things that don't matter? If you're extremely underweight or extremely overweight, that also affects your hormones. So yes, gaining or losing fat to get your body in a more balanced state is most likely going to have a positive effect on your hormones. But you don't need a complicated restrictive diet plan and crazy supplements to do that. I know it can seem easier in a way to say, oh, I'll just do this diet and it's going to fix everything, but it won't. And the stress and anxiety you will go through to follow that plan will probably be more harmful than helpful. And yet again, you'll waste your money on another diet plan that doesn't work. So let's not let before and after photos inspire us to buy a diet plan. If you're buying a diet plan because you think you have a medical issue and you're going to buy this diet plan because you unfortunately think it's going to fix you, weight loss should not be part of the conversation. So before and after photos do not belong, okay? Weight gain or weight loss can be part of your journey towards better health, absolutely, but it should not be sold to you in the form of a diet that is supposedly going to fix any medical condition, right? Because again, we have to look holistically at the big picture. Going to the doctor, going to an expert, going to a specialist who is trained in the medical area that you have concern in is important. Eating an overall balanced diet. Unless you have a food allergy, you don't like a food, or it's unavailable to you, there is no reason that you cannot enjoy any food that you want as part of a weight loss plan. So restricting certain foods are not going to do anything for you. And these plans are often very complicated, hard to stick to, unsustainable, and they just keep you in this diet culture loop. Listen, I know it's hard to walk away from so many thoughts and feelings we have when it comes to dieting. But when you know better and you can look at all these marketing tactics through a different lens, you feel such a sense of relief and empowerment knowing that you are no longer part of that and they don't have power over you anymore. That you never ever have to think about buying another diet plan because you just understand how to control your own results without all the hype and the nonsense and the overcomplicating. The truth is, all these diets will come and go, just like the thousands of diets have come and gone before them. But macros and energy balance and habits will always be the way you control your results, always. And this is why I became a nutrition coach, because I want other women to slam the door on diet culture and take their power back. That's why I say when you work with me, you never have to buy another diet plan again, because you're going to be empowered to understand how to make decisions and you get to choose. Now, a lot of people don't want that. They don't want to have the power, because if it's on you, then success or failure is also on you. And that is scary for some people. But you deserve to understand how to control what your diet's effect has on your body, whether you gain muscle or lose fat, and how to get where you want to go and actually maintain it. And you have to be willing to have the patience to do what it takes to get there. Your results are not going to come from following fad diets. Those results that you really want you're never going to get where you want to go and be able to stay there by following fad diets. It's just not ever going to happen. So let's walk away from diet culture in 2024. Let's learn about nutrition on a scientific level, just the basics. You only need to know what you need to know to make decisions for yourself. Understanding the basics. I have Demystifying Macros, a whole podcast that will walk you through that. You can find that information in the show details if you want to subscribe to that mini podcast series. And let's do things differently in 2024. Okay. So that's it for today's episode. Like I said, I could talk about this forever and ever, but I just wanted to highlight a few things that are probably going to come up for you as you're making decisions on what you want to do for 2024. This was, I don't want to say hard to talk about, but sometimes it's really hard to separate my personal feelings about it versus the information that I want to give you. And it's kind of all intertwined. So I know I interjected a lot of personal stuff here, so hopefully that's okay. And remember, if you have any questions, you can always email me, lil@liliuslewis.com. All right. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you back here on the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. If you haven't already, make sure to check the episode details for my new listener starter guide, and any additional resources mentioned in the episode can also be found in the show notes on my website. You can always find me on Instagram at Macros with Lil, and for more healthy lifestyle tips, recipes, and information on my one-to-one and group coaching services, make sure to check out my website. All the links can be found below. If you know someone else who is ready to start building their formula for feeling their best, please share the love and send them a link to the podcast. I hope you found today's episode helpful, and I'll see you back here next week for a brand new one.